Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, Endanger My Life, huh? Someone's taxes just went up. I have a neighbor who thinks he can do whatever he wants. I live pretty rural and we all have large tracts of land. His is next to mine. He trespasses all the time, hunts out of season, commonly known as poaching, and is pretty much a pain in the butt. One day he decides it's perfectly fine to shoot his gun in our direction and continues to do it even after we yelled and said, "There's people over here, stop." I might add that the police here are pretty much worthless. But you see, I have a very long memory. This stupid guy built a huge house and barn on his place, but the tax records here show that he only owns a vacant lot and has been paying almost nothing in taxes for over 10 years. He never told the county he built his house and barn. Oops, bad boy. So I waited about a year and a half to cover my trail, and this spring the county auditor is getting an anonymous letter from a concerned citizen showing photographs of the house, the exact parcel number and a Google overhead view of the property, date of his first build and more information to bolster the case. Somebody is going to be paying a lot of back taxes. Next one is titled, Cheapskate Bosses Who Got What They Deserved. A few years ago I worked at a staffing agency, like I was the one trying to give people jobs, not the other way around. However, this area is full of people who don't want to work. Sometimes they are just applying to say that they're looking for work but aren't really, so they can get money from the government. I know a lot of people who genuinely can't work that need it. This is different. About 25% are in that group, 60% work a few weeks and then drop off, 15% actually want to work. We would hire for companies that are mostly warehouses, factories, that sort of thing. People would come in and apply and have orientation for whichever job that we had available that they wanted to take, or use our website to apply, and then we call and set up a time for the orientation. I was very detailed about the type of jobs that we were hiring for. I didn't want them to go into the job blind, and they know what they're signing up for. We would make sure they qualified for the job and could pass a drug screen. Yeah, I had to deal with their pee. We would set them up direct deposit. We didn't do paper checks to their bank, to a pay card or whatever they wanted to use. Most of the jobs had better pay than even I was getting. Everything was very out in the open. However, I still would get sworn at almost every day for them failing the drug test. One of the main things people would get mad as is if they hadn't signed up for direct deposit by the time payday came around, and they would get mad at me for them not signed up. In the orientation I was always very clear that we need that info as soon as possible. If they had scheduled for an orientation I would tell them to bring that with them. If they turned it in on that Friday payday, they probably wouldn't get paid until that next Monday due to needing 2 days to get everything processed with the bank, pay card people. Basically it was awful and not even near how much I should have gotten paid. The staffing company had a few different branches in the tri-state area. The owners would pop in unannounced whenever they felt like it and would get irritated if it didn't look like we were working. Part of the job is putting all the employees' info into the system, following up with those who didn't come to their scheduled orientation. That happened all the time, calling to applicants to schedule a time to come in. That sort of thing. So, if we were sitting at our desk they would be mad. And they would get really mad if we weren't doing our jobs exactly how they wanted. I had figured out a better system that worked for me that was faster. And they would say, "Do your job how I told you to do it." I'm pretty sure they were kind of sexist, but I won't go into that. At my branch it was me and my boss. She was the branch manager. I did all the staffing and she would try to find new clients that we could send people to work there, sales basically. If we started to get really busy she would help me out and we got along just fine. The job is super stressful though, so about a year and a half into working there my boss started looking for another job and found one and left 2 weeks later. I don't blame her at all, it was a sucky job. The main branch said they were looking to hire a new branch manager. I asked if I could be able to apply for the position and they said no due to lack of experience. I kind of understood. I had only been working in staffing for a year and a half. But they kept not hiring a branch manager. So I was doing everything by myself. After a little bit they sent someone from the main branch to fill in the position temporarily until they found someone. The person they sent was from accounting. Like, didn't do any staffing stuff at all, and he didn't even do any sales, making me to do it. He, I'll call him Fred, would basically sit in the branch manager's office scrolling through his phone and then got mad if he saw me checking my phone really quick. So, I was still doing everything and had an evil overlord breathing down my neck, which is almost hindering me from doing my job well. He was only there a few days a week, so I had some time that I didn't have to deal with him. This went on for 4 months, working a stressful job for sucky pay. I had gotten engaged early that year and I put in a request for a week off for my honeymoon before my boss left, and it had already been approved by management, thank goodness. I asked Fred a few months before my wedding if they had any progress with finding a branch manager, because it would need to be soon if was going to train the person the basics for the week I was going to be gone. Take a guess at what he said. No, we're going to just send one of the staffing people from the main branch to cover the week you'll be gone. Make sure you're back that Monday after, since you're going to be using all your vacation time. I had to use all my vacation time and had 3 days without pay because I didn't have enough for the full week, which I found out I was supposed to get exactly 3 more days after working there a year, but no one told me until like 6 months later. And when I asked Fred about it, he just said, well, there's nothing we can do about that now. Oh well. Yeah, that made me angry. Anyways, I got married and had a wonderful honeymoon. When I came back to work that Monday, Fred asked me to come into his office to tell me that they didn't realize how much I was doing until I wasn't there for a week, and that they're going to hire another staffing agent. Not a branch manager. Another staffing agent. Which was fine with me, at least I wouldn't need to do everything. But because of this they gave me a little bit of a raise so I wouldn't get mad at having the same pay as someone who was just starting. Thankfully though, it went from it always being Fred that came down a few days to Fred and another manager, Mary, would go back and forth with who was going to be there. I liked Mary. She was someone that was a manager from one of the other branches that would go to few places we hired for, so she knew more about staffing. We hired someone else about a month later and she, let's call her Jill, was good. It took a bit to get her trained, but she had never worked a staffing company before, so I knew where she was coming from. Fred was still acting branch manager. Me and Jill figured out a system that worked pretty well for us. We would swap every week who was doing to orientation, staffing, and who was answering the phone and inputting things into the computer. But there were things that Jill wouldn't remember or didn't want to do no matter how much I would remind her. We got along fine, but I could tell she would get irritated at me trying to help her out. It was just a few things here and there. It wasn't awful, so I would just take care of it myself whenever I would switch into whichever role. I was also doing sales, conduct interviews, and help Jill if she had a problem or a question. So, I was basically doing the work of the branch manager. Every few months I would ask when we were going to get an actual branch manager. Every time they would say, oh, well, we are trying to cut some costs, so we're going hold off on that for now, or I don't think there is a need for a branch manager. Every time I would get more annoyed. I was doing the work of the branch manager without the pay or title. This went on for a whole freaking year. I was getting close to my 3-year mark and I was just fed up. I started look for another job. I applied and went an interview. They scheduled me for a second interview, which I thought was a good sign. So I, for the last time, asked if I could be considered to be a branch manager on my 3-year mark. I had a meeting with them where they went into details about why they don't think I would be a good manager, a bunch of garbage excuses basically. I kind of just brushed it off and just said, okay. I saw them glance at each other with a perplexed look from that reaction as I left the meeting. The next day I had my second interview and it also went really well. A few days later I got the call that I got the job. Mary came in that afternoon and I told her I needed to talk to her about something. She instantly knew that didn't sound good. I told her I am putting in my 2 weeks. She said, yeah, I kind of saw it coming considering your reaction in the meeting a few days ago. She was sad that I was leaving and said she would let the rest of management know. The next day when she came back in, telling that when she told management about it they were all very surprised that I wanted to leave. Like, what do you think would happen after all this? And guess what they did the next day? They put out on a hiring website that they were hiring for a branch manager. This really made me want to screw them over. But, because I'm a nice-ish person, over the next 2 weeks I made sure everything was filed correctly, put the right things in the system, all the things that never got done without me. I kept on asking if they had hired anyone so I could train them, and of course they didn't. I kind of felt bad because I was putting Jill in the same position I was in when my boss left, but I was tired of being used. I really tried to help Jill to learn everything she'll need to do, but I knew Jill wasn't going to do everything that would need to be done, and that it wouldn't take long for that branch to start to suffer. Whenever I left, it took them a few months to find a branch manager that would stay more than a few weeks. Jill would keep me updated with things through text and would ask me questions about how to do things or where to find something in the system for several weeks. They had to cut down their open hours until they could find a branch manager. Even then, it was a fast revolving door of people that would maybe stay a few months. They also lost a few clients that they were staffing for because I wasn't there anymore. I had good professional relationships with several of clients, but when I informed them that I was leaving and why, they dropped that place like a hot potato. Jill found something better about a year after I left. I am happy for her. I've been at my new job for a little over 2 years now and I'm loving it. Everyone is so nice and professional. But my standards weren't really that high in comparison to the staffing place. My new boss and a few of the other clerical ladies took me out to lunch my first day. I almost cried. I honestly can see me working here until I retire, which is several decades away. The only thing that I got from the staffing place was more of a backbone, but no one deserves to be taken advantage of. Next one is titled, Do Not Touch. I touched it. 5 years ago, a friend and I decided to rent a 3-bed, 2-bath duplex together. My friend got the ensuite and I was happy to take the second larger room, but we split rent 50-50. About 5 or so months into renting, my roommate told me she was having trouble making rent on time and wanted to get one of her mates to rent the other room and we would all split the rent equally. I was okay with having extra money, so agreed. Now the new roommate moved in and didn't want to be included in our arrangement to take turns buying necessities. We took turns buying toilet paper, cleaning products, food. She wanted to pay her own way and I was not offended by this, each to their own. My original roommate decided if it was going to be like this, we may as well all do it. This was after I had done the last shop for the house that was due to run out, so I'm a bit like, yeah, we can do that, but I'm not happy. I got over it fairly quickly though, and there were no hard feelings between us. Shortly after moving in, new roommate starting to leave passive-aggressive post notes around the place. Take the rubbish out. We always emptied the bin if it was full and you are the last to use it. However, she just expected it to be done in turns, which no one has the time to keep track of. Seriously? We had one undercover park and she would always be first home, so she would park there. One time I got home before her and parked there. The next day there was an A4 piece of paper on the wall claiming it was her car park and I was not to park there. I don't remember this being the agreement, and to be honest I was a bit upset of all the notes being around. I told her we can take turns parking undercover, but in a not so calm way. I was stressed and over it. Nothing more was said and she obliged. Now by this time I feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own home because this new roommate is a nightmare. She leaves her toilet paper in the main toilet, the one that guests use, etc. One day I notice a post-it note saying, Do not touch. I was so over these ridiculous notes everywhere, I took a picture of me touching the post-it note and sent it to her through text. In my opinion, I thought I was pretty funny and felt like I had a good laugh. I was side-eyed and ignored for a good week. When the lease ran out, I was not renewing or living with them again. Last one is titled, Can't Do the Job Right. I'll make it my job to take your job. I was an observer in this whole affair, but to say I didn't enjoy the hell out of it would be a lie. Company A did fencing, walls, barriers, etc. Company A was run by Bob. Bob was a real upstanding guy, took over the business from his father and really grew it into something big. Bob had an employee, Jake. Jake had been with Company A for quite a few years, but Bob and Jake always rubbed off on each other in the wrong ways. Bob always felt like Jake was the king of shortcuts and shoddy workmanship. When Bob took over the company from his dad, Bob applied more pressure on Jake to bring up the quality of his work or be let go. Eventually, Jake got tired of the increased pressure and quit and formed his own fencing company called Company B. Here is where I come in. I started a job in a company providing business services to small to medium-sized businesses in the area, and both Company A and Company B became my clients. This was several years after Company B had formed. From my outside viewpoint, Company A was that local company that's been around forever, that does good quality work that you can trust, but they aren't going cheap. They never try to be cheap, but you can trust them. Company B was the young startup who was cutting corners and being competitive in every way possible, often by lying or misleading its customers. That's when Company C comes in. Company C was building a production facility in the area and wanted a wall with gates around its new production facility. This was going to be a big contract, and really the only two players in the area that could possibly do this job were Company A or Company B. This contract was worth a lot. If my memory serves me correctly, the job was somewhere near 7 figures. Company A and Company B went to go bid. Company B came in at like a 30% lower price point, and even though Bob tried to explain it wasn't possible for Company B to do the work that was promised at the price point that was given. Of course, money talks and Company B got the contract. I remember Bob was furious. In his eyes he felt what Jake was doing was wrong. He didn't mind fair competition, but Jake's MO has always been way underbid, overpromise, and rely on cost overruns to make a profit. Bob's opinion on business was a price is a price, and if he says he's going X for Y, he's going to do X for Y even if he loses money. It's how he was raised. Some time goes by, and Bob gets a call from Company C. They've apparently fired Jake and his company due to not being able to do the work required, and ask Bob if he can come in and fix the mistakes. Bob agrees and gets the job done. At this point Bob starts thinking, he's gotta take Jake out. Jake is taking too much money out of his pocket. Bob comes up with the idea of buying Jake out. But Bob knows if he approaches Jake regardless of what he offers to pay, Jake is going to say no. So Bob has got to be smart. Bob is talking to me about this during one of our meetings. We had become quite close. And I tell Bob, I bet there are lawyers out there who specialize in helping other companies acquire other companies. Bob asks me if I know of any. I don't, but I did have a client who specialized in business law who would be more familiar with this whole thing. I give Bob his contact info and Bob thanks me. Bob contacts the lawyer and tells the lawyer what he would like to do. The lawyer tells Bob a lawyer who used to work for him now works for a firm that specializes in mergers and acquisitions, and if Bob wanted to buy out Jake's company, he's confident this firm could get it done. Also, this firm was in the big city far away from their small community, so it's unlikely Jake would know what's truly going on. Bob contacts the firm and says he wants to buy out his competitor and would like to enlist their services. Now this is already getting a bit longer, so I'll get to the point. This firm ended up buying Jake's company, lock, stock, and barrel, and gave the company to Bob. All the while Jake was completely oblivious to the fact that his arch-enemy has just acquired his very own company. I recall Bob describing to me the day he walked into Jake's company with such delight. Bob was told he owned the company, Jake had been paid and was expecting to meet the new owner of the company that pleasant Monday morning. Jake was given the title of General Manager, and was considered second in command now. So Bob walked into the building that once belonged to Jake with his documents and the lawyer that had helped him acquire the firm, who Jake was familiar with. Bob walked into Jake's office to Jake's surprise. Jake, hi Bob. Bob, hi Jake, how are you? Jake, I'm good, what are you doing here? Bob, oh nothing much, just thought I'd come to check out my newly acquired business. Jake, Bob, Jake, you sold your company to me. Jake, I did what? No, I didn't. I sold it to XYZ. Bob, XYZ is the law firm I hired to organize the transaction. I am now the owner. Jake, that's bullcrap. Bob, here's the documents. Lawyer who Jake was familiar with confirmed this was all true. Jake, so you're now my boss? Bob, yes, now get up, that's my chair and I'm tired, I wanna sit down for a minute. Jake, this is my office. Bob, this is my company, and I have decided that this office is now my office, so I'm going to need you to get out of my chair. Jake gets out of the chair. Bob, great, well, have a sit. Jake. Jake, thanks. Bob, Jake, I think the first order of business today is getting rid of redundancies. Jake, what do you mean? Bob: well, you see, Jake, whenever a company acquires another company, you get overlap, redundancies. 2 HR departments, 2 secretaries, 2 accountants, etc. But now it's all one company, so now you got redundancies, overlaps, which is quite frankly a waste of money. Jake: yay. Bob: and I don't need 2 owners working for one company, and he laughs and tells me he had the crap-eating grin on his face. Jake: it's become apparent that your services are no longer required and effective immediately you are terminated. Jake: protested Bob: the decision is final, you may collect your personal belongings and leave the premises. What time did you get to work this morning? Jake: 7 a.m. Bob: great, so you've been here for 2 hours, I'll make sure payroll pays you out for 2 hours on the agreed upon rate in the buyout and agreement, have a nice day. Jake: so you're just firing me? Just like that? Bob: yup, should have done this long ago. Jake: what about my family? Bob: Jake, I just bought your company from you and paid you a lot of money, you'll be fine. Now get out of my office and out of my building. And that is how Bob acquired and fired an employee he should have fired long before. I remember the day vividly when Bob scheduled an appointment with me to go over Company B services and negotiate a new service contract with us. It was the day Bob had fired Jake. Bob was in a great mood, one of the best moods ever. We did the business we needed to handle and Bob said, PJ, you helped me a lot get this all done. I'd like to invite you out to dinner and drinks and let's watch Monday Night Football together. I really hadn't. I said, Bob, I really didn't do much. He said, oh yes you did, you pointed me in the right direction. I go, well, that's the least I could do. He said, very well, still like to take you out to dinner and drinks if that's all right with you. Now I'm not one to turn down free beer and food, so I agreed. And that night Bob and I went to a local hangout and watched Monday Night Football and ate and drank beer as Bob recounted this whole experience with such joy. Bob later rebranded Jake's company as a commercial-only enterprise and refocused his main company on residential, and both companies still exist today and run by Bob and son now. Thanks for listening.